People say that truth comes out in time, but sometimes truth walks into the room wearing a white coat and holding a life in her hands. The morning at Riverside General Hospital had been chaotic from the start. Sirens screamed outside. The emergency department buzzed with nurses rushing, monitors beeping, and stretchers rolling through the double doors. But none of that noise compared to the storm brewing inside room 9. "Get those hands off me." The woman's voice cut through the room like glass. Her name was Margaret Cole, and even as her heart monitor screamed danger, she found the strength to push away the very person fighting to save her. Her diamond ring caught the fluorescent light as she shoved back the hand of Dr. Maya Lewis, chief of cardiology, top of her class, and one of the best in her field. But to Margaret, Maya's only crime was the color of her skin. The nurses froze. One gasped quietly. They'd seen prejudice before, but never like this. Not in a moment where life hung by a thread. The monitor's high-pitched alarm filled the silence. Blood pressure dropping, oxygen falling. Margaret's perfume, sharp and expensive, could no longer mask the scent of panic. Her lips were turning blue. Maya didn't flinch. Her face stayed calm, her eyes steady. She'd been through this before. The quiet insult, the forced smile, the unspoken challenge to prove she belonged. But this time it wasn't about her pride. It was about survival. Still, professionalism won over emotion. She turned to her colleague standing nearby. "Dr. Patel," she said evenly, "would you like to take over Mrs. Cole's care?" The room went still. Everyone understood what that meant. Maya wasn't walking away out of weakness. She was walking away to protect her team from chaos. Dr. Patel hesitated, his jaw tightening. He looked at Maya with respect and quiet anger. Then he nodded. "Of course, Dr. Lewis." Margaret's breathing eased as Dr. Patel approached. "Thank goodness," she muttered. "Someone competent." Her voice was fragile, yet her prejudice carried weight heavier than her illness. But Maya didn't leave. She stood back, scanning the monitors, reading the subtle patterns in the ECG. Something didn't look right. This wasn't a standard heart attack. The pattern was too irregular, the rhythm too deceptive. It reminded her of a rare condition she had studied, one she had written about in the American Journal of Cardiology just last year. Something deep in her gut whispered, "If I walk away now, this woman will die." "Page Cardiology for a consult," Dr. Patel said quickly. The nurse glanced at him. "She is cardiology," she whispered, eyes flicking toward Maya. Patel's expression tightened with discomfort. He turned to Maya, his tone formal. "Dr. Lewis, would you mind consulting on this case?" Maya caught the flicker of defiance in Margaret's eyes. "I don't want her near me," the patient snapped, clutching her husband's hand as the door burst open. Edward Cole, tall, commanding, every inch the man of wealth and authority, stormed in. "What is happening here?" His gaze swept the room, then landed on Maya like a dagger. "Who is she?" "What's going on with my wife?" "She's our chief of cardiology," Dr. Patel began, but Edward cut him off. "I don't care who she is. My wife requested another doctor, and this hospital runs on my family's donations. Do I make myself clear?" Every word dripped with power. The kind that bends systems. The kind Maya had fought her entire career to survive. Meanwhile, the beeping grew faster. Margaret's heart was racing toward collapse. Maya's instincts screamed for action, but the politics in the room pressed down like iron chains. "Dr. Patel," Maya said quietly, stepping closer to the monitor, "I need to show you something." He followed her a few steps away, lowering his voice. "I'm sorry about this." "This isn't about apologies," Maya interrupted, her tone clipped. "Look at the ST elevation here. That's not a typical infarction. It's a coronary spasm. If we keep following the usual treatment, it will trigger a fatal reaction." Dr. Patel frowned. "You're thinking variant angina?" "Exactly. We need calcium channel blockers, not nitrates. She could go into full cardiac arrest." Before Patel could respond, Edward's voice boomed behind them. "What are you whispering about? Is my wife in danger?" Maya turned back, her tone calm but firm. "She's experiencing a rare form of cardiac distress. The treatment must be adjusted immediately." Edward scowled. "So now you're in charge again?" "No," Maya replied. "I'm trying to keep her alive." The tension in the room was unbearable. Pride versus duty, ignorance versus expertise, fear versus truth. Edward stepped forward. "If anything happens to my wife, you'll be held personally responsible." And then the monitor flatlined. A piercing alarm filled the air. Nurses moved instinctively. Dr. Patel called for epinephrine. But Maya's eyes saw what others missed, a pattern that confirmed her fear. "Stop the nitrates," she ordered. "It's making it worse." No one moved for a second. The chain of command was tangled by prejudice. "Now," she commanded again, stepping in. "Push dilazum, slow fee. Prepare the cath lab." Edward's shout echoed through the room. "You're not authorized to touch my wife." Maya looked him dead in the eye. "Sir, if I don't, she dies." And then, without hesitation, she acted. Her hand steadied as she administered the drug. 10 seconds passed like a lifetime. Then the monitors began to shift, the wild spikes smoothing into steady rhythm. Margaret's breathing eased. Her color began to return. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Patel exhaled. "She's stabilizing." Maya's voice was steady but cold. "For now. But she needs immediate catheterization or the attack will return." Edward stood frozen, disbelief written across his face. His wife, alive because of the woman he had tried to dismiss. Maya turned to the nurses. "Prep the cath lab. Now." And as the doors swung open again, bringing in the hospital administrator, the question hung heavy in the air. Would the hospital protect her? Or punish her for saving a life the wrong way? The administrator stepped into the room like a storm in a suit. Mr. Daniels, head of operations at Riverside General, had the kind of practiced calm that came from years of putting politics before people. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "What seems to be the issue here?" he asked, voice smooth as glass. Margaret, pale and trembling, pointed at Maya. "That woman. I told them I didn't want her touching me. And she did anyway." Daniels turned to Maya with the same polite tone used for cleaning up a public relations mess. "Dr. Lewis, may I have a word?" Maya's gloves were still streaked with antiseptic, her focus locked on the recovering patient. "I'll join you in a moment. We're not out of danger yet. Now, doctor." He gestured toward the hallway. The nurses exchanged glances. Even Dr. Patel looked torn. Maya removed her gloves, the sound sharp in the quiet, and followed Daniels out of the room. The door clicked shut behind them. Daniels dropped the smile. "Do you understand who that woman is?" "Yes," Maya said. "A patient who nearly died." He sighed, lowering his voice. "Margaret Cole's family has funded half this hospital. Her husband is a board member. He called me before he even reached the ER. This isn't about money, it's about medicine," Maya replied evenly. "Everything here is about money," Daniels snapped, then caught himself. "Look, Dr. Lewis, you're one of our best. But this situation is delicate." Maya folded her arms. "You mean racist?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Daniels rubbed his temples. "Let's not make this political. We can assign another cardiologist. You'll still oversee your department, just not this case." "She won't survive without the correct treatment," Maya said. "Dr. Patel hasn't seen this condition before. It's rare. If I step back, she dies." "Then document your concerns and let the assigned team proceed," he said. "We can't risk alienating our biggest donors." Maya took a slow breath, holding back the frustration that burned inside her. "If we start deciding care based on who the patient prefers to look at, we're not running a hospital anymore. We're running a club." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Be careful, doctor. You're walking a fine line." A crash echoed from behind the ER doors. Both turned at once. The monitor alarm screamed again. Maya didn't wait for permission. She pushed past Daniels and sprinted inside. Margaret's body was convulsing, her limbs jerking violently. Dr. Patel was shouting orders. "She's coding. I need epinephrine, stat." "No!" Maya yelled, already reading the monitor. "It's the medication reaction again. Stop the protocol. She's in paradoxical vasospasm." Patel froze. "What?" "Epinephrine will kill her. Push calcium channel blocker. Now." Daniels stepped forward. "Dr. Lewis, you're not authorized. Authorization doesn't matter when someone's dying." She barked, grabbing the syringe herself. "Nurse, 30 milligrams, slow IV push. Stop her." Edward shouted, lunging toward Maya. He grabbed her wrist mid-injection. The room erupted in chaos. Nurses shouted. Patel tried to pull Edward back. Maya met Edward's glare without flinching. "Sir, remove your hand. You're killing her." "I'm saving her," she said, her voice like steel. "Let me work." Patel finally wrenched Edward's grip away. "Stand back." The medication flowed. The room held its breath. 10 seconds. 15. The monitors steadied. The violent spasms slowed to shallow, rhythmic breathing. Maya checked the vitals. "We've got her back." The nurses exhaled as one. Patel looked at Maya, stunned. "That was the right call." Maya didn't smile. "Temporarily. She still needs the cath lab." Edward stood frozen beside the bed, watching the woman he loved come back from the edge. His expression was a storm of anger and disbelief. Daniels turned to Maya, his voice shaking. "You just violated direct orders. Do you realize what you've done?" Maya faced him squarely. "I did my job." Minutes later, Margaret was wheeled toward surgery. Daniels trailed behind, already on his phone, muttering about liability. Edward followed, his silence louder than his threats. In the prep room, Maya stood at the sink, scrubbing her hands methodically. Her reflection in the steel mirrored back a calm she didn't feel. 20 years in medicine, dozens of lives saved, and yet every battle felt like proof she didn't belong. She thought of her grandmother, the one who'd taught her to listen, not just with her ears, but with her heart. The memory came uninvited. She was 12, sitting beside her grandmother's hospital bed. The old woman's breath had been shallow, the attending doctor distracted. "It's just old age," he'd said. But Maya had pressed her ear to her grandmother's chest, hearing a strange flutter. "There's something wrong," she'd told him. He'd smiled kindly, patted her hand, and walked away. By morning, her grandmother was gone. A treatable aortic dissection. That memory had built her life's mission, to never let another patient die because someone didn't listen. Dr. Patel entered quietly, scrubbing beside her. "Cath lab's ready." "Daniels is losing his mind. Legal's been called." "Of course it has," Maya said, voice flat. "They could suspend you." "I know. Then why take the risk?" "Because if I hadn't, she'd already be gone." Patel paused, water running over his hands. "You could walk away from this, you know. Let me handle it." She met his eyes in the mirror. "Would you let someone die to protect your job?" He didn't answer. Outside, the hospital moved at its normal pace, people walking, machines humming, lives being measured in seconds. Inside the scrub room, Maya drew one steadying breath. Then she said quietly, "Prepare for the Whitmore procedure." "I'll lead." Patel turned to her in shock. "That's your own technique. It's not officially approved for this case." "Neither was prejudice," she replied. "But that didn't stop it from nearly killing her." He nodded slowly. "Then let's save her." The door to the operating room opened, light spilling into the sterile hallway. Maya stepped through it, knowing the moment she did, everything, her career, her reputation, maybe even her future, was on the line. But somewhere deep down, she knew the truth. This was what she was meant to do, and as she entered the room, every heartbeat that echoed from the monitor reminded her of one thing. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone in the fire. The air inside the operating room was so still it felt sacred. Machines hummed softly, the sterile scent of antiseptic heavy in the air. Every face was masked, every pair of eyes fixed on Dr. Maya Lewis as she took her place at the head of the table. Margaret Cole lay pale and motionless beneath the bright surgical lights. Her pulse was weak but steady, a fragile thread of life that could snap at any second. "Vitals?" Maya asked calmly. "Blood pressure holding at 80/40, said the nurse. "Oxygen at 93. Maya nodded. "We begin." Dr. Patel positioned himself beside her. He could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken fear that this operation wasn't just a procedure. It was a battle, not only for a patient's life, but for Maya's right to do her job. As Maya guided the catheter through the femoral artery, her movements were precise, her voice steady. Advancing to left anterior descending artery, contrast medium ready? "Ready, doctor," the nurse said. The screen flickered with a ghostly image of Margaret's heart, illuminated in pulsing light. Maya studied the monitor carefully. What she saw confirmed everything she had suspected. This wasn't a standard blockage. The arteries were spasming violently, clamping down on themselves like fists. "There," Maya murmured. Vasospastic reaction confirmed. "Begin modified delivery sequence," Patel's brow furrowed. "Are you sure you want to attempt the full Whitmore protocol? The risk—" "I'm sure," Maya interrupted gently. "We either act now or she flatlines within minutes." Outside, The glass behind the observation window, 3 figures stood watching. Edward Cole, Administrator Daniels, and the hospital's legal advisor. Their faces were tight with tension. They couldn't stop her now, not without condemning the patient, but their unease was clear. This was no longer just medicine. It was defiance. Inside the room, the world shrank to the rhythm of the heart monitor. Maya's voice broke through the mechanical beeping, calm and sure. Initiating phase 1, localized calcium channel infusion. A thin line of medication entered the artery. The screen flared briefly, then steadied. The spasm eased. The arteries began to relax. Response is positive, Patel whispered. But Maya wasn't satisfied. She had seen enough rare cases to know that temporary stability could be an illusion. Prepare for secondary dilation, she ordered. Increase dosage incrementally. No sudden changes. Patel followed her lead, eyes darting between the syringe and the screen. The artery walls expanded slightly, the flow normalizing. Maya exhaled slowly. Good. Now prepare for targeted genetic sampling. Patel hesitated. During the procedure? Yes. There's something here we're not seeing. I need a sample while the vessels are active. It might explain her reaction. Patel nodded. Understood. For the next 40 minutes, the room moved like a single organism. Every instruction from Maya came crisp and confident. Every motion of her hands seemed to guide the chaos back into order. When the final phase ended, the monitors sang their steady rhythm again. Heartbeat strong, pressure stable, oxygen full. She's out of danger, Patel said quietly, a note of awe in his voice. Maya allowed herself one deep breath. Not yet. But we've bought her time. Outside the observation window, Edward's expression was unreadable. He stood perfectly still, his reflection caught in the glass as he watched the woman he'd dismissed bring his wife back from the edge of death. Daniels and the lawyer whispered urgently behind him, but he didn't respond. Inside, Maya peeled off her gloves. Her voice was calm, but her thoughts ran fast. She knew this victory wouldn't come without cost. Patel turned to her. That was extraordinary, he said softly. I've read your paper on the Whitmore procedure, but seeing it, it's different. You just saved her life. Maya glanced at him. Then remember what you saw today. There are patients who will need it again, and not all of them will have someone willing to fight this hard for them. The door opened. A nurse stepped in. Dr. Lewis, Administrator Daniels wants to see you in his office immediately. Maya almost smiled. Of course he does. She handed the chart to Patel. Monitor her vitals every 15 minutes. If there's even a hint of instability, call me directly. As she left the OR, the hallway felt colder. Each step echoed with a quiet certainty. The price for doing what was right was always high. Daniel's office was already crowded when she entered. Edward Cole sat rigidly in a chair, his suit immaculate, his face drawn tight. Beside him, the hospital's attorney sorted papers into neat stacks. Daniel stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't turn when she came in. You directly ignored a patient's explicit request, he said. You defied administrative instruction. You performed an experimental procedure without consent. Maya stood tall. I performed a necessary procedure using an established, published technique. The patient survived because of it. Edward finally spoke, his tone cold. My wife told you she didn't want you involved. You had no right. I had a duty, Maya replied evenly. She was dying, Mr. Cole. I followed the only course that could save her. The room went silent. Then the lawyer spoke quietly. Dr. Lewis, the board will need to review this. Effective immediately, you're suspended from active clinical duties pending investigation. Maya nodded once. Understood. Daniels turned to face her, his expression hard. This hospital runs on trust. You've damaged that. I hope you're prepared for the consequences. I've been prepared for consequences my whole career, she said. Edward rose to his feet. You think this is over? I'll make sure you never work in this city again. Maya met his gaze steadily. You're free to try. But the record of today will show one thing clearly. That prejudice almost cost your wife her life. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's enough, doctor. Maya nodded. You're right. It is. She turned to leave, the weight of the day pressing down but not crushing her. Because even as the doors closed behind her, she knew the truth would come out. It always did. In the recovery room, Margaret Cole stirred for the first time. Her eyes fluttered open. The soft beep of monitors filled the space around her. When her vision cleared, the first face she saw was Maya Lewis checking her chart. No, she croaked weakly. I told them not you. Maya didn't look up. I'm only checking your vitals, Mrs. Cole. You're stable. The procedure was successful. Margaret's voice trembled. You touched me, after I told you not to. You were in cardiac arrest, Maya said calmly. You needed immediate intervention. That's what I did. Margaret tried to sit up but winced in pain. Where's my husband? He's speaking with administration, Maya replied. He'll be here shortly. Margaret's eyes narrowed. I'm going to make sure you pay for this. Maya adjusted the IV line, her tone neutral. My only concern is your recovery. You'll need follow-up treatment and further testing. There may be a hereditary component we need to address. What are you talking about? Margaret asked, confusion flickering across her face. I'll explain once we have the results, Maya said quietly. Rest now. As she turned to leave, Margaret's voice wavered behind her. Why did you save me after how I treated you? Maya paused at the door. Because it's what I swore to do. And then she was gone, leaving Margaret staring at the ceiling, her mind swirling with questions that no longer had easy answers. Outside, the evening light bled through the hospital windows. The world carried on, unaware that inside Riverside, General, a truth was waiting to be revealed that would shake every person involved. The test results were coming, and when they did, no one would be the same again. 2 days later, the corridors of Riverside General were quieter, but beneath that calm, the tension still lived and breathed. Everyone had heard the story, how Dr. Maya Lewis had defied orders to save a donor's wife. Some whispered that she was a hero. Others called her reckless. No one said it to her face. Maya sat alone in her small office, a paper cup of coffee cooling untouched beside her. The lab report on her desk was marked urgent. She had known what it would say before even opening it, but knowing didn't dull the weight of it. The results confirmed what her instincts had already told her. The heart spasm wasn't random. It was genetic, rare, and strongly linked to ancestry most of her patient's family would never have imagined they carried. A soft knock broke the silence. Dr. Patel stepped in, holding another file. You've seen the results? She nodded. Confirmed by 3 labs. There's no mistake. He exhaled slowly. You're really going to tell them, aren't you? They deserve to know the truth, Maya said. Even if it burns, Patel hesitated. They'll accuse you of fabricating it. You know that. Maya looked up at him, eyes calm but tired. Truth doesn't need to shout to be real. It just needs to stand. Moments later, Maya was walking down the corridor toward the private recovery suite where Margaret Cole rested. Edward was already there, sitting rigidly at her bedside, a newspaper folded neatly in his lap, though his eyes hadn't touched the print. When Maya entered, both looked up. The air tightened. I have your test results, Maya said quietly, setting the file on the table. Edward's tone was clipped. We'll have our own specialist review them. I expect you to, Maya replied. But before you do, you should understand what they mean. Margaret shifted uneasily, her face still pale from recovery. Go on, she said, though her voice trembled. The genetic analysis shows a hereditary mutation affecting cardiac response to certain medications, Maya explained. It's rare and it carries markers that are most commonly found among individuals with West African ancestry. Silence. The kind that drops like a stone. Edward blinked, then frowned as if he'd misheard. I'm sorry, what exactly are you implying? Maya's voice remained gentle. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating the medical fact. These markers appear in less than 1% of people of entirely European descent, but in over 20% of people with African heritage. Margaret's lips parted, disbelief etched into every line of her face. That's impossible. My family's been in Boston since before the revolution. Genetics don't follow family stories, Maya said softly. They just tell the truth of the body. Edward stood, his face flushing with anger. You expect us to believe this? After everything that's happened? This is retaliation, plain and simple. Dr. Patel, who had followed Maya in quietly, spoke for the first time. I reviewed the data myself, Mr. Cole. The results are conclusive. No, Margaret said sharply, her voice rising. You're all lying. Maya stepped back, giving her space. You can order independent testing. I encourage it. But please understand, these genetic markers explain why standard treatments nearly killed you. They're not about race. They're about survival. Margaret shook her head, tears glinting in her eyes. You're making this up. You're trying to humiliate me. I'm trying to keep you alive, Maya replied quietly. Edward's fists tightened. We'll take this to the board. You've crossed every line. Then take it, Maya said. But take the truth with you. She turned and walked out, leaving the couple alone in a silence that had shifted from anger to something heavier. Fear. That evening, the hospital buzzed with rumors of an emergency board meeting, scheduled for the following morning. Maya knew what it meant, Judgment Day. But as she reviewed her notes late into the night, she felt strangely calm. The truth was her only defense, and she had nothing to hide. When the morning came, the boardroom was full. Executives, department heads, and legal counsel sat around a long, polished table. At the far end sat Maya, hands folded neatly before her. Edward Cole stood near the window, pale and rigid. His wife was not present. The chairman called the meeting to order. We are here to review the incident involving Dr. Maya Lewis and the treatment of Mrs. Margaret Cole. Mr. Daniels has recommended termination of Dr. Lewis's employment pending investigation. A murmur rippled through the room. Daniel straightened his tie, avoiding Maya's eyes. This hospital's relationship with its donors is built on trust, he said. Dr. Lewis violated that trust. She ignored patient preference and administrative instruction. The hospital's attorney spoke next. After reviewing all documentation, the legal department notes that Dr. Lewis's actions fall under emergency medical exceptions. They are defensible under federal law, specifically Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, which prohibits discrimination in health care. The boardroom stilled. Daniel's expression soured. That's irrelevant to donor relations. No, Maya said, her voice steady. It's directly relevant to patient safety. If doctors can be silenced by prejudice, then no one is safe. A door at the back of the room opened. Every head turned as Margaret Cole entered, walking slowly but with a new steadiness in her step. Edward turned in shock. Margaret, you shouldn't be here. She ignored him and faced the board. I came because I need to say something. She looked at Maya first, and for a moment the two women simply regarded each other, one calm, one trembling, but both changed. I was wrong, Margaret said finally. I refused treatment from Dr. Lewis because of her skin. I said terrible things, but when my heart stopped, she was the one who saved me. A wave of quiet swept through the room. Margaret swallowed hard. The genetic tests confirmed what she told us. The markers are real. I've had independent labs verify them. I don't understand how, but I carry African ancestry. That truth doesn't make me less. It just makes me human. And she saw that before I did. Edward's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Margaret continued, her voice low but clear. If this hospital punishes Dr. Lewis, my family will withdraw every cent of our funding. Excellence should never be silenced to protect prejudice. The chairman leaned back in his chair, speechless. For the first time in his long career, he seemed unsure what to say. The room was utterly still. Maya didn't speak. She didn't need to. The truth was already standing in her place, visible to everyone. When the meeting adjourned, Daniels approached her, his tone subdued. Dr. Lewis, the board will vote to reinstate you. Maya nodded once. That's good for the hospital. He hesitated. And for you? She met his eyes. I didn't do it for me. Outside the boardroom, Margaret waited. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Margaret said softly, I can't undo what I said to you, but I can start being different. Maya gave a faint nod. That's all anyone can do. Margaret managed a weak smile. You saved more than my heart, doctor. You saved my truth. The two women stood there, not as enemies anymore, but as living proof of something rare, that sometimes the hardest truths heal deeper wounds than medicine ever could. As Maya walked down the hall, the weight of months lifted from her shoulders. The hospital lights glowed brighter. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew one thing for certain. The story wasn't over yet. Change had begun, and this time it wouldn't be silenced. 3 months later, spring sunlight spilled across the glass walls of Riverside General. The building that had once felt cold and rigid now carried a hum of quiet transformation. New posters lined the halls, promoting fairness in care and training programs for medical bias awareness. The hospital's motto had changed too. One line now read, "Medicine serves truth, not pride." Dr. Maya Lewis stood at the podium in the hospital's freshly renovated auditorium, facing rows of doctors, nurses, and students. Behind her hung a simple banner that read, "Riverside Center for Medical Equity, Inaugural Symposium." The air held a weight of history, of things once broken now being rebuilt. Medicine, Maya began, her voice strong and clear, isn't just about treating bodies. It's about confronting truth. The truth of the body, the truth of science, and sometimes the truth we don't want to see about ourselves. The audience was silent, listening. She paused, letting the moment breathe. "When I first walked into this hospital 10 years ago," she continued, "I thought my only job was to heal. I thought skill would be enough. I learned the hard way that healing also means challenging what stands in the way of it. Fear, ignorance, and yes, bias." In the front row, Dr. Patel listened with quiet pride. Beside him sat Mr. Daniels, now far less self-assured, his expression humble. He had been one of the first to endorse the reforms that followed the Cole incident. 3 months ago, Maya said, this hospital faced a choice. We could protect comfort or protect truth. The decision we made has saved lives. Since implementing our new protocols, blind case assignments, anti-bias training, and open patient reporting, outcomes among minority patients have improved by 28%. That's not just progress. That's people living who might not have. She let the applause fade before continuing. We can't erase what happened here, and we shouldn't try. But we can honor it by making sure no one is ever denied care because of who they are, or who someone thinks they are. At the back of the room, a figure slipped in quietly. Margaret Cole, dressed simply this time, took a seat in the last row. Her face looked softer, older somehow, touched by humility and reflection. She watched without drawing attention, her eyes never leaving the woman speaking on the stage. Maya glanced toward the back of the room, recognizing her. A small smile ghosted across her face, not of friendship, but of shared understanding. In medicine, Maya said, truth always finds its way out. It might be written in a patient's heartbeat, hidden in their DNA, or buried beneath years of assumption. But it always comes. And when it does, we have a choice, to fight it or to learn from it. The audience leaned in as her tone deepened. When we choose truth, we heal more than bodies. We heal systems, we heal trust, and we heal ourselves. Applause began softly, then swelled until the room vibrated with sound. After the ceremony ended, people gathered in small groups, discussing policies, ethics, and personal stories. The change was visible not just in words, but in the way people looked at one another, with more awareness, more humanity. Maya lingered near the stage, collecting her notes. A voice came from behind her, quiet but firm. "Dr. Lewis," she turned. Margaret stood there, her hands clasped, eyes searching. "I just wanted to say thank you," Margaret said, "for not walking away, for saving my life when I gave you every reason not to." Maya nodded. "You've done something harder than surviving, Mrs. Cole. You faced the truth." Margaret smiled faintly, her gaze steady. "It changed me. The counseling, the testing, the realization of where I came from. I used to think knowing something like that would take something away from me. It didn't. It gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost." Maya studied her for a moment, then said softly, "The truth always gives back more than it takes." They stood in silence for a moment. Two women whose lives had collided at the crossroads of pain and truth. Margaret exhaled slowly. "My husband and I have turned the family foundation towards supporting equitable health care. The first grant went to fund this center." She looked around the bright, modern hall. "I thought it would be fitting." Maya's expression softened. "It is." As Margaret turned to leave, she paused at the doorway. "For what it's worth, I may never forget what I said to you that day. but I hope this helps balance the scales even a little." When she was gone, Maya looked back toward the banner at the front of the room. The word Center for Medical Equity glowed softly in the afternoon light. For the first time in years, she felt something quiet and rare settle in her chest. Peace. Later that evening, she walked out onto the hospital terrace overlooking the river. The city was alive, the water catching streaks of gold from the setting sun. Behind her, the faint hum of hospital life continued. Monitors beeping, doors opening, lives beginning again. She leaned on the railing, closing her eyes for a moment. The world still had its ugliness, but she had seen something stronger. The courage to face truth, the grace to change. Her grandmother's words came back to her then, soft and steady in her memory. They'll never see your value until they need what only you can give. Be ready for that moment, Maya smiled faintly. The moment had come, and she had been ready. The doors behind her opened. Dr. Patel stepped out holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her one. "Still making it too strong?" she asked. He grinned. "Wouldn't be mine otherwise." They stood together for a while, watching the river move. "You did something big here, Maya," he said finally. "We did," she replied. "But this is just the start," Patel nodded. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in that day?" Maya's eyes stayed on the horizon. "Every day. And every day I'm grateful I did." The sun slipped lower, painting the water in deep amber. The hospital lights flickered on one by one like small promises. Truth had demanded its price. But it had also given something back, something lasting. And somewhere deep inside the hospital, in a recovery room that no longer carried resentment, a woman named Margaret Cole rested peacefully, her heart steady, her truth finally quiet. The world would keep spinning, imperfect and flawed, but here at least something had changed for good. Because sometimes the hands that save us are the ones we once refused to hold. The night after the symposium, Maya couldn't sleep. The city outside her apartment window pulsed with life. Car horns, laughter from distant streets, the low hum of something constant and human. She sat on the edge of her bed, the speech notes from earlier still lying open on her desk. Her mind should have been at peace, but the unease that had followed her for years lingered like a shadow that refused to fade. She'd won the battle. The board had reinstated her, the hospital had changed, and even Margaret Cole had found her own redemption. Yet beneath it all, Maya knew the fight wasn't truly over. The world didn't change in one victory. It bent slowly, painfully, with each truth spoken aloud. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Patel. Emergency at the hospital. "Cardiac unit, come now." She was out the door within minutes. The corridors of Riverside General were quieter at night, the sound of footsteps echoing off polished floors. When she reached the cardiac ward, Patel was waiting with a grim expression. "We've got a new patient," he said. "Middle-aged man. Collapsed at a charity dinner. They brought him in about an hour ago." "Vitals?" Maya asked, already pulling on gloves. "Unstable. Severe arrhythmia. Initial EKG looks strange, similar to Margaret's." She stopped. "Variant vasospasm?" "Possibly. But there's more. The patient is Edward Cole." Maya froze. "Margaret's husband?" Patel nodded slowly. "Yes, she's on her way here." They moved quickly. Inside the emergency bay, Edward lay pale and gasping, the monitors flashing urgent warnings. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The man who had once demanded Maya's removal now depended on her hands. "Dr. Lewis," Patel said quietly. "His EKG shows the same markers. It's genetic." Maya's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. "Prep him for the Whitmore protocol. We're not losing him tonight." The team moved with practiced efficiency, trusting her completely now. As she guided the catheter, the monitor beeped erratically. "Hold the dose," she ordered. "We're too close to the spasm threshold." Outside the glass window, Margaret appeared, her hands pressed to the barrier, eyes wide with terror. "Save him," she mouthed. "Please." Maya nodded once, not looking away from the monitor. "Let's go again." Slow push, half dose. For long seconds, nothing changed. Then the lines on the screen began to even out. The rhythm steadied. The numbers climbed. "Heartbeat stabilizing," Patel murmured. "He's responding." The tension in Maya's shoulders eased slightly. "Good. Maintain dose and move to observation." When the crisis passed, she stepped out to the waiting area. Margaret rushed forward, her face streaked with tears. "Is he alive?" Maya nodded. He's stable, but his condition matches yours. The same genetic markers, the same vascular reaction. Margaret covered her mouth, trembling. He never wanted to take the test. He said it was nonsense. Maya's voice softened. Now he'll have a chance to see what truth really means. Margaret looked at her, the weight of the moment settling in. I used to think truth was something that broke people. Now I see it's what puts them back together. In the recovery room, Edward stirred. When he opened his eyes, the first person he saw was Maya, standing by the foot of the bed. He blinked, disoriented. You, again? Yes, Maya said simply. Me again. He tried to speak, his voice weak. I was wrong about you. Maya stepped closer, checking the monitors. You were wrong about more than me. He gave a faint, humorless laugh. I guess I was. His gaze drifted toward the doorway where Margaret stood. She told me the truth about our tests. I didn't believe her. You don't have to believe her, Maya replied. Just live long enough to see it for yourself. Edward's eyes glistened with something unfamiliar, humility. I spent my life thinking I knew what power was. But lying here helpless, I see it's not money or influence. It's what you do when someone's life depends on you. Maya nodded quietly. That's the only kind that matters. He reached out, his hand trembling. Thank you. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then took it. Get some rest, Mr. Cole. You've got a second chance. Don't waste it. Later that night, as she walked out of the ward, Margaret waited near the elevator. He'll recover? She asked. He will, Maya said. With treatment and honesty. Margaret exhaled shakily. It's strange. Everything we built our lives on feels so small now. Sometimes it takes breaking for things to fit back together, Maya said. Margaret nodded. You gave us both our lives back. And maybe, for the first time, the truth too. When Maya returned to her office, the hospital was quiet again. She sat at her desk, the glow from the monitors casting pale light across her notes. The report from Edward's procedure lay open beside Margaret's. Same condition, same markers, same story written in their blood. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory again, soft, sure, unwavering. They'll never see your value until they need what only you can give. She closed her eyes, whispering to the empty room. They see it now, Grandma. For the first time in years, the ache inside her eased completely. Weeks later, Edward and Margaret returned to the hospital, not as donors making demands, but as advocates. They stood beside Maya at a press conference announcing the establishment of the Cole Lewis Foundation for Genetic Research and Health Equity. Edward's voice shook as he spoke. We once used our influence to close doors. From now on, we'll use it to open them. When it was over, Margaret turned to Maya, tears in her eyes. You turned our pain into purpose. Maya smiled faintly. You did that yourselves. I just showed you where to start. The cameras flashed. The crowd applauded. But beyond the noise, there was a quiet moment, a heartbeat shared between two lives once divided by hate, now bound by truth. As the crowd dispersed, Maya looked out at the city through the glass windows of the hospital lobby. The same sun that rose over suffering also rose over healing. She thought of the thousands of patients who would come through these doors, of all the stories yet to unfold, of the hands that would save, and the ones that would learn to let themselves be saved. She turned to leave, her white coat catching the light like a banner of calm against the chaos of the world. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was walking alone. She was walking with the weight of truth and the grace of forgiveness beside her. And somewhere in the rhythm of the city, in the steady pulse of life itself, she heard it again, that soft, steady promise whispered by the world she had spent her life healing. Truth always returns to those who fight for it.